Hi, I'm Rod Meldrum, the Book of Mormon evidence guy.
And I'm Russ Barlow with True Seekers Foundation.
And we want to talk to you just a bit about our tour that we have coming up. It's the Eclipse Tour with Legacy Tours and Travel.
We're excited to be in Washington, D.C. to meet the Tunisian ambassador and Her Excellency. You know, we're just here excited to talk about this connection to the ancient world. And you know why this is important, because you know Book of Mormon geography and where the Nephites and Lamanites existed and lived is pretty important. And our focus is on the flood and creation and about how those connect, because they're all kind of right here in the heartland of America.
But this tour is also kind of focused on a really important event that only happens very, very rarely. But there was one that happened about 7 years ago, and that is the eclipse that will go all the way across North America. It actually darkens. We believe that there's two promised lands. There's Jerusalem and the New Jerusalem.
Yes.
And interestingly enough, they're on opposite sides of the earth. So one of them is always in the light while the other is in the darkness, and vice versa. But when you have an eclipse across the United States, then you have both promised lands in simultaneous darkness, which is not really a good omen.
And the interesting part about it is the last eclipse went right across Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where we're going to be, where it goes across this year. So we're going to be smack dab in the X in the middle of the heartland, talking about this period of time where total darkness covers this area.
Both promised lands. And this is an intersection in both time and in space, really, when it comes down to it, because they have in 2017, there was the eclipse that happened that went from the northwest to the southeast.
Yep.
And then we have this one that's coming up this year in April. And that's where we're going to be, is right where those two eclipses, if you follow the paths of both eclipses, they cross where? Right at the southern tip of Illinois.
and it's actually right near the New Madrid fault line. So, you know, it's going to be fun to be there during the shaking. Yeah. No, that's not likely going to happen.
No, actually, for those of us who are into the Heartland geography of the Book of Mormon, the significance of that has to do with the bottom of Illinois is actually formed by, kind of looks like the bottom of an arrowhead, and like the bottom of your bolo tie here. Anyway, so and it's surrounded on the left side, basically on the west side by the Mississippi River and the Ohio River on the east side, forming an area that's highly protected by mile-wide rivers. And then about 30 miles north of that, just along, if this was the area, it would be right there. There's about 43 ancient fortifications by the Hopewell Mound Builder people, who we believe are the Nephites.
I'm glad I brought this prop so we could actually talk about that today.
But it turns out that this is where, if you're familiar with the Book of Mormon, you have Laconius, the Gadianton robbers at this point in time, just before Christ comes to the Nephites. Gadianton robbers have become so powerful that they actually have to abandon their cities, and they gather in the center of their lands, and it says they go south. And we know where Zarahemla is by Doctrine and Covenants section 125, and we believe that Bountiful is in Ohio. So if they gathered in Illinois, then went south, this would be the place where they gather with their 7-year supply of food and their animals to starve out the Gadianton robbers.
You know, and another part of this tour is we start where creation was. This is the promised land for Adam and Eve, and that's the first stop on our tour. We're going to start with that so we can kind of travel through time, and we're going to have an ability to touch the places where Adam walked, where the Lamanites walked and the Nephites walked, and where Americans came to, and we know where the Temple in New Jerusalem is going to be built. Those are all part of this tour.
Yeah. It's a multi-history tour, really, when you think about it. We start with Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, which was in the Missouri area. And then you have the Noah's flood, and that brought Noah and his posterity, the only posterity that makes it through the flood, over to what would then have been the New World, but today we call it the Old World because it's backwards. Right. And then the Book of Mormon brings the Jaredites over, and the Nephites over, and the Mulekites over, and that's one of the things we're going to be talking about here at this event that we're doing here in Washington D.C. is the Phoenicians and how they came over. But the bottom line is there's these two promised lands, and there's a connector between these two.
So you know it's actually three promised lands, right? Because the promised land where Adam and Eve were is the promised land where Nephi came, and it's also the promised land.
Same promised land.
So it's the same promised land.
Yeah, but I'm talking
Sorry
about
that. You're talking about the Old World.
The Old World and New World, but there's a connector between the two, and there's this ship. And this ship is called the Phoenicia. And it has actually done, it's a 600 BC replica ship, and it's actually done 2 of the 3 voyages of the Book of Mormon. It is the connector between these two, and we're going to go and actually see the reconstruction of this Phoenician ship that has actually gone the Lehi's voyage and also the Mulekite voyage.
And that's going to be in Zarahemla, well, Montrose, but Zarahemla, where...
In Iowa.
And,
that's right.
And it's where Joseph Smith was given the name of a city that shall be the name of Zarahemla, also in the Doctrine and Covenants. And it's on the west side of the river Mississippi.
But it wasn't Joseph Smith that gave him the name. It
Oh,
was
that's
the Lord,
right.
because it was in a Revelation. So there we go.
See, that's why I'm with Rod. He keeps me on the straight and narrow.
Well, you know, I mean, as if Joseph Smith wasn't enough of an authority on the project.
Right.
On
You know, there's something else that's unique about this tour. Now, many of you have gone on tours with Rod, and you've heard Rod speak. And on this tour, this particular tour, though, brings together Rod and I and a third guy, Dean Sessions, who's the author of the UM, and all 3 of us will be on this tour together.
Okay, now Russ, you got to explain the UM.
Okay, the UM is Universal Model. Universal Model is a science that actually recreates some of the events that happened during the flood. It gives us the science behind creation and the flood. And that's also something on this tour. We're going to be going 650 feet underground into a salt mine.
That's a deep dive.
That's a deep dive into salt. But we'll talk about that connection between salt and the creation, the flood, and even why this is the promised land.
And water. It also plays
Water
into
is a
this
big
whole
part
thing.
of it.
And even the whole structure of the earth. The one thing that's going to be interesting, this is the first time in a long time since probably since the Grand Canyon tour that we've been actually all able to go together, because we all have such different crazy schedules, and it's been it's difficult to do it. But this time we're going to all get together and actually have a chance to talk about these sacred histories. It's going to be
20
awesome.
years ago. 20 years ago, we went to Mount St. Helens, the 3 of us, and that was kind of the expedition that started all this out.
Yeah.
It's really going to be fun. We want you to go to Legacy Tours and Travel, to their website. Rod has his tour sponsored there. Go there and sign up on this tour. There's just a few seats left, but you're not going to want to miss this. You want to come with us on this tour.
Yeah, all right. We'll see you down on the tour.